Okay, so hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of AI and Oats, which is my daily show where I talk about AI and AI news and answer AI questions. But very quickly, by way of introduction, who am I? Well, my name is Alistair, this is my YouTube channel, welcome if you are new. And here I teach Claude Code and Codex for knowledge work and kind of business use cases, but I also run an AI consulting and training company called Dux, and if you own or run a business and you'd be interested in seeing how AI could be implemented effectively to grow your business, then feel free to get in touch through the link in the description. And I also have a school community where I go into more detail about the skills and actual systems I use in Claude Code and Codex, and the link for that is in the description too. But now that the preliminaries are out of the way, let's get into the questions. Essentially, the way this works is during the day, I have a Codex scheduled task that goes and looks through various forums and Reddit threads and pulls out what it thinks are interesting questions, and news articles about AI, and then I just sort of answer them, or more often than not just end up on tangents somewhat related to them. But now, it might be a little bit of a shorter episode today because I'm going to be honest, Codex has done me slightly dirty with the questions here. It hasn't pulled out the best ones today. A little bit disappointing, so apologies about that. I might just end up talking about something random, to be honest. But let's dive into them. Does a human still review your code? I mean, again, I'm not writing kind of like production level code, so I don't, and also I'm not a coder kind of by training, so if I were to review my own code, it would be somewhat pointless. I do still think that there is merit to people who are, well, I guess I'll expand this more generally. I think there is merit to people who have domain-specific knowledge reviewing the output of AI, because if you don't have either kind of domain expertise or like a very specific outcome in mind or something, you know, your own mental criteria against which, your own kind of internally developed criteria against which to judge something, then I think it's very easy for AI to create something that looks extremely convincing and perhaps even functions convincingly, but could still be flawed, and but to a non-expert, those would be sort of imperceptible flaws, and therefore I do still think that there is quite a lot of use to having humans review things, because, or at least in the first stage, before you kind of turn them into rules and examples. And so whether that's kind of your writing voice, you're going to know that better than AI in the first instance. I still, you know, even though I have AI handle a lot of kind of writing tasks for me, I'm still usually a final gate and will go kind of through and, you know, kind of make minor edits and that sort of thing, with the aim then of teaching the AI as I'm going what it wants to, the kind of changes I like to make, so that in the future it can get better. Equally kind of, yeah, so for most of the work I do, although it's not coding, I, as a human, still review it. I think coding is something which is more like coding, I guess, is kind of more deterministic, or not deterministic necessarily, but in the sense that there is right and wrong. Well, I mean, I'm not an absolute expert coder, but, you know, it's a bit more like maths. Like, maths is either correct or it isn't. And so I feel like those sorts of things which are less qualitative can be reviewed more efficiently, or kind of can be subject more effectively to like sub-agent review. You know, a sub-agent can check if a like mathematical proof is valid by the main agent, I would imagine. Not that I'm an expert mathematician, but when it comes to something far more qualitative, where there's a lot more judgment, then I do still think there's merit to a human with either domain expertise or kind of a reason to be the one making the judgment, whether that's because it's going to be put out under their name or their company's name, should be involved in the early stages, at least, when kind of processes and skills and stuff are being developed. And then once they're, I think eventually they're kind of their involvement can be reduced once the once you've had enough kind of runs and stuff for a skill to improve sufficiently, or if you're setting up a loop for that loop to improve sufficiently, then I believe the human can step back a little bit. So I still think there's merit to, certainly human gating on a lot of steps with AI. But that being said, I do think that more and more, like Codex, Claude Code, are able to handle more and more and do it to a higher quality. Whether that is writing or strategizing and that sort of thing. Right, next question. Am I using Claude Code wrong, or is vibe coding supposed to take this long? Question from an accountant trying to build a personal project. I think vibe coding, or whatever you want to call it, can take quite a while. I mean, there's a few ways, there's a few ways to improve. I guess it depends whether you're talking about like projects in the macro or literally session to session Claude Code and stuff taking a long time to do it, because I guess getting through projects faster overall is more of a kind of broad level, like strategy and planning question, I would imagine. And I guess if you've got a good roadmap built out, then you can, like, as this like original post says, they put it in a loop. But I guess once you've kind of got a good plan and if you've got plans that can kind of have like elements parallelized by different subagents dealing with different parts of the same thing, kind of like the idea of like what a gauntlet loop is from Matt Schumer. It splits it up, works on them all at the same time. Even that still takes a while, but it gets to a high quality. I mean, you can probably improve the way you structure projects in terms of planning, executing, and testing, if you want them to take less time as a whole. But I do think that a lot of stuff, especially early on, like if you're setting up an API key for a service for the first time that you haven't used before, then that's going to slow you down a bit. Whereas the next time you go and do that, or like an MCP or something, that MCP will already be connected, so you can just tell Codex to use it or that sort of thing. But in terms of like session to session, if you think it's taking a long time, then I think there's more you can do in that regard to improve those elements of it. I mean, certainly. So actually, I've just started. I would often run Codex and I guess Fable 5 as well in Claude Code, either on like high or extra high. And actually, just over the past couple of days, I've started playing around with them on medium, which I think has been going quite well so far. And that is faster. If you use a lower thinking level, it's going to be faster, and probably you're not going to be stretching the intelligence of these models to the point where they need to think really hard anyway with most of your tasks. So although it might feel a bit weird to run them on like low or medium, it's probably still going to be intelligent enough for you. That's the other thing. The other thing you can do is you can use fast mode if you've got Codex. And I think I saw a tweet from OpenAI or something saying they're coming out with ultra fast mode. That might be out already. I'm not sure. It's only coming out soon if it's not out already, which I believe is 14 times faster than the standard mode. And so that's the other thing you can do. That will, I guess the trade-off there is if you're going to choose to do a fast mode or even an ultra fast mode, you're going to be using up more of your usage limits. So it depends if you're willing to take that trade. And then in Claude Code, you can only get fast mode on Opus, as far as I'm aware. And I think it didn't used to be the case that you could get it on your plan, but I think now you can get Opus 5 on fast mode on the plan. Within Claude, if we go to Opus, there you enable fast mode. There you are. That's fast. Right, and if we go into Codex, here's where you control your thinking level, and then here's where you control your speed. And obviously if you use an even smaller model or a kind of lesser model, that will be faster as well. Like if you're going to use Luna, it's going to be faster. It's also going to be lower quality. So that is your trade-off. I mean, your basic trade-off is quality versus time versus money. Are coding harnesses like Claude Code, Open Code, Codex using the same techniques? I'm not an absolute expert in terms of the harnesses that these frontier labs build, but I do think they differ slightly. I mean, I guess what goes into a harness is a lot about how it treats its context window, what it does with its context window once its context window gets full. I don't know if you consider things like browser automation, computer use, do they fall into the harness? If they do, then I guess there's slight differences. One take I've heard recently from Alex Finn, who is a good YouTuber in the AI space, is that Codex has the best harness at the moment. Codex desktop app is the best harness at the moment, and that he even recommends using it connected to like remote control on your phone or whatever it's called. I kind of have to agree. I would say. I mean, in some ways, like I use Codex more than Hermes, and it feels close, like fairly close. Maybe Hermes you can message back and forth a little bit more, or it can give you push notifications a little bit better, but like the Codex app can give you push notifications. Mine is connected to Telegram anyway, so it can message me through Telegram. Theoretically, I think I could message it back through Telegram, but it's actually easier just to message it through the app. You have voice mode in the app as well. And yeah, so I think Codex, like if you just have a local computer, like a powerful local, or not even, yeah, it doesn't even have to be super powerful, it can just be your laptop as long as it's always on. Like that works as a good agent. So I don't know how much the harnesses vary from like Claude Code to Codex. I know, again, I mentioned it in a previous video, but there was a thing where the testing harness used for RKGI3, which is a test about like puzzle solving basically, as a benchmark test, Opus 5 performed very well versus a GPT 5.6 Sol in it. It was like 3 times better score. But then OpenAI ran the RKGI3 test again with a different harness on GPT 5.6 Sol, and it pretty much tripled its score as well, like getting much closer to Opus. So I think I guess the overall point is like, in some ways the models on a kind of intelligence level, I feel, are somewhat converging. Like there's not a huge difference between Fable 5, Opus 5, GPT 5.6 Sol. I feel like, yes, they have their unique things to it. Like, yes, I know a lot of people don't like Opus 5, but then it is quite good for design. I mean, I'm not a huge Opus 5 fan. I prefer Fable 5 personally, and like, yes, probably Fable 5 is kind of the most intelligent of them, but are you ever really going to be pushing it right to its limits of intelligence? For most people, probably not. So I feel like there's not a lot in it between the frontier models and even a lot of the kind of like Chinese models at the moment, like Kimi K3 and that sort of thing. So a lot more of the effectiveness does come down kind of to the harness engineering, a combination of like the harness engineering from the labs, like the harness you choose to use, but also your own kind of personal, like, I don't know what you want to call it, context engineering around, you know, the folders and stuff in which you're running the coding agents and that sort of stuff, like that access to skills, MCPs. So I guess maybe lump that into the harness engineering. So yeah, I feel like a lot more of it does come down to the harness and the setup around your agents now. Whether there's significant difference between Claude Code and Codex, that sort of thing, I don't know. I don't feel like there is a huge difference, like in terms of usage. Just anecdotally, it doesn't feel massively different. I think Codex feels slightly better at the moment. That's just from my personal experience. I really, really like the Codex app. I like the Claude Code desktop app too, but I feel like Codex is probably the best at computer use and like browser automation. Also, Codex doesn't constantly crash my Google Chrome, which my Claude Code does for some reason, although that's not a common problem, although I don't know many other people with that same problem. But yeah, no, I think I certainly think the whole take of like Codex being a very strong harness right now is pretty valid. And Codex working really well as a kind of like agent to replace Hermes agent or that sort of thing. Grokbot I think is good as well. I mean, I guess the thing with Grokbot is like, if you already have a Cursor subscription, then I guess that works with Grokbot, so great. If you don't, then it's another subscription you've got to take out, and is it worth it if you can recreate a lot of it with Codex or something? Who knows? I like Grokbot though so far from my usage of it, and so while I have it, you know, on a free trial or whatever, I've been enjoying it. But yeah, no, I do certainly think that, like, just generally speaking, this idea of, I think so much of it in the future will come down to which ones are going to have good connection to like another phone or some smaller remote device, whether that ends up being like glasses or some kind of voice device, because at the moment that is what has switched me primarily over to Codex more than Claude Code. And don't get me wrong, I still use both, but because I do so much of my work through my phone now, connected to my laptop remotely, I'm almost always reaching for Codex before I go for Claude Code, because I just find it difficult to connect to Claude Code through the phone and actually start new sessions and that sort of thing. And so I was thinking, like, I don't even know if I'll buy... Like, I don't know if when I go to buy a new computer, normally I'd buy a laptop, but the next time I buy a new computer, I'm almost thinking I might just buy... I'd rather buy like a Mac Studio or some kind of Mac Mini that has, you know, more RAM and more storage, because I feel like all I need is really, like, I wouldn't really need to be carrying it around with me. I just need my phone or something as like the front end, the way to get connected to my laptop, and then I could, you know, or not laptop, but in this case like computer, and then you could just be running Codex, Claude Code on there, and if it's kind of a powerful enough computer, then probably local models as well. So I don't know, I feel like we might see a tendency away from laptops, and I think for most people it will be a little while before they decide to move away from laptops, but I feel like there will be quite a few people who quite soon will actually feel that what they want is a more powerful, like, computer, and that if they ever need to do anything remotely or away from where that main computer is located, then the connection through phones to things like Codex and your AI agents is going to be so good, and you won't need a computer like to work on a spreadsheet or edit a video, because all you'll need to do is marshal and manage the agents and instruct them remotely, and the tool for that would be your phone. So that's kind of what I think is going to happen. That is somewhat unrelated to coding harnesses. I don't know quite how I ended up there, but yeah, I'm not sure whether laptops will continue to be quite as ubiquitous as they are currently, and whether we might not see a switch more towards a kind of heavy-duty PC, lightweight portable front end in the form of a phone, or at some point like glasses or something like that. Who knows? How is Opus 5 medium reasoning effort surpassing Fable 5 Max and Opus 5 Max on Frontier Code v1.1 main benchmarks? Is this true? I have not seen this. I mean, I was looking at, like, I'm not a big Opus 5 fan personally. Like, the other day, Opus 5, it just felt really stupid sometimes. Like, it sent an email with no... I asked it to send an email that I had it draft, and it decided that it would enter the, like, email address before it entered the email address, pressed entered, so it sent a blank email, and then it pasted the body, like, text, which was just stupid. So it sent a blank email, and then I had to chase that up and say, like, sorry that I sent you a blank email. So sometimes Opus 5 just feels really stupid to me, whereas I never feel that with Fable 5, and, like, well, not never, but really, really rarely. Like, I really like Fable 5. Obviously, it's a shame that you only get half your plan allocated to Fable 5, so I basically use up all my Fable 5 usage every week, but I think Fable 5 is a really good model. I really like it. Yes, it's a little bit slower, which is a little annoying, but and equally I do think that, yeah, like, sometimes you don't necessarily want to run, like, Fable 5 on a super high level of reasoning, because it might just over reason. But anyway, I guess what I'm saying I guess what I'm getting at is, the other day I was looking at Artificial Analysis, which is like a website that kind of ranks and tests all the different models and stuff, and they still had Opus 5 Max, like, winning intelligence ahead of Fable 5 and that sort of thing. And I don't know, I guess there's a difference between, like, intelligence and performance on benchmarks and, like, kind of technical capability, like official capabilities of the model, and just how it feels day to day, and, like, how functional it is for your systems. And that's why I'm not an absolute huge fan of benchmarks, and quite frankly I don't know anyone who is a huge fan of benchmarks. And I guess this is, like, talking about coding specifically. So if I had to guess why Opus 5 Medium would be better than Max, I imagine it's because maybe it avoids over-reasoning, and, you know, I mean, I don't know exactly how Frontier Code is scored as a benchmark, but it's possible that, you know, there could be detrimental effects of models over-reasoning, and I do think that it is possible for them to over-reason if you do put them on a particularly high level of thinking effort. That being said, though, I don't think I don't know. I don't think people should just go off benchmarks. I feel like use a few different models and see what you like. And like, I mean, I don't hate Opus 5, but when it came out, I used it for a bit. I thought it would replace Fable 5, like for my personal usage. Then I decided I just don't like it that much. I probably don't hate it as much as some people, but I don't like it that much. So now I'm back to Fable 5. And for me, GPT 5.6 Sol is I really like GPT 5.6 Sol. I might go as far as saying I love that model. I think it's great. But I'm still kind of playing around with it and testing it myself. Like for a while I would run it on high, then recently I switched to extra high. Didn't notice an enormous difference. If anything, maybe it was slightly better on high. Now I'm trying it on medium for a bit. The combo I've got now is medium and fast, which is very fast, and I'll see how good the reasoning is. So far it's been pretty okay. Like I haven't really noticed it encounter any issues going from like where it used to be extra high to medium. It hasn't really done anything stupid so far. It seems pretty good. So I think I can't give you the exact reason for why it would surpass it on medium versus max, but I say like don't worry too much about the benchmarks. And the best thing to do is just mess around with the models on different levels. Use them for different things. Use different models for different things, different levels for different things. See what you like. Like a lot of my kind of scheduled tasks are set up on Sol 5 Lite because it's pretty simple stuff they're doing, and they're kind of just doing the same thing over and over again. So just mess about with them, see what you like yourself, I guess. Okay, so I think that'll pretty much be it for today. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hopefully there were one or two useful elements, even if a lot of it seemed unrelated to the questions. If you did enjoy, please feel free to subscribe. And just to mention again, if you run a business, or even if you don't run a business, you just do any form of knowledge work, then if you'd be interested in seeing how AI could be implemented effectively in your business, or you'd like me to coach you one-to-one just to help you set up your own personal AI operating system in Claude Code or Codex, feel free to get in touch through the link in the description. And if you're interested in the school community, that has a link in the description as well. But thank you very much for watching, everyone. I will see you tomorrow. Goodbye.